Social media blurs the line between complete stranger and friend by offering a constant, curated window into your world. The more access people get, the more familiar they feel. So what happens when someone bonds with the version of you they've stitched together from your posts, reels, and stories, and mistakes it for a real-life connection? That's the dark reality of parasocial relationships. What can start as a way for celebrities, public leaders, and creators to connect with their audience and fans by sharing details of their life can quietly evolve and lead to some pretty terrifying encounters. In this episode, I'll briefly break down the complex nature of parasocial relationships and share some of the biggest real-life cases of obsessed fans who took things way too far. It's a cautionary tale. Cue the music. Hey there, I'm Melody Bose, your host of Jeans with a Blazer, a podcast about rewriting the rules of work and life. So here's what a parasocial relationship looks like. It often starts the way that any modern friendship might. Someone follows you online, they double tap your photos, drop a few laughing emojis under your updates, maybe even slide into your DMs with some lighthearted compliments. And over months or years, they've become a loyal friend, celebrating your wins alongside you, sharing your darkest, most heaviest moments, and accepting you, flaws and all. But here's the twist. You've never actually met them. You don't know their real name, their face, or where they live. To you, they're nothing more than a username on a screen. But to them, you've shared a journey together. In their mind, you're someone they know, and you're someone they know very well. That illusion feels pretty harmless until one night when you're home and there's a knock at your door. That stranger knows your schedule, your routine, and that on this particular night, you're home alone. They've flown halfway across the world, spent all day tracking you down, and at best, awkward. At worst, well, I'll share some stories of those horrifying incidents that do not end well. So that's the gist of a parasocial relationship, which means a one-sided bond where a viewer or follower or fan feels genuine intimacy with someone who doesn't actually know them. So before I get into some of the craziest cases of parasocial relationships gone wrong, I want to take a moment to break down how these even form, because it's something that individuals and brands have been using for quite a long time to build authentic communities and brand loyalty. Okay, so let me paint the picture for you. Let's say that you saw a video on social media from a creator that was hilariously relatable, so you like or you comment. That's a parasocial interaction. Just a single instance where you engage with them and maybe they engage back. It feels like a two-way interaction in the moment, even though it isn't. Not really. A parasocial relationship is what happens when those moments compound with each other. So these are hundreds of little interactions spread out over months or years, and they create the feeling of closeness and familiarity. That's where things start to get a little complicated because it doesn't feel one-sided anymore. It takes on the perception of a friendship that feels really genuine. Those are real feelings, but only to one person. And it's built on two things: repeated exposure and the illusion of reciprocity. That's what makes people feel like they truly know these artists or creators or celebrities. This is actually a community building strategy that's pretty essential to building a successful brand because it's authenticity that makes something or someone really memorable. Parasocial relationships are powerful because they're basically acknowledge you saying, by sharing relatable or vulnerable parts of myself or intimate moments of my life, I am then welcoming you in it to be a part of my story. Let's face these shared experiences together. And that loyalty, over time, it sells concert tickets, merchandise, books, you name it. Take, for example, the Duolingo owl. Okay, so earlier this year on social media, the Duolingo, the language learning account, revealed that the brand's mascot had been unalived, for lack of a better word. And the internet, the people, they were shook. They were so swept up in what happened and who could have done this. And it was fun to participate in, even though this character was entirely fictional. I mean, entire threads popped up as fans pieced together theories and they created memes and they wrote these investigative breakdowns like it was a real, legit true crime case. What made it so powerful is that this wasn't a real person. This was a fictional mascot. And yet people grieved, they investigated, and they defended it as if it were a true friend to them. That is the magic and the risk of parasocial relationships. A character or even a brand can feel so familiar and personal that people project their own emotions and narratives onto it. And that just paints just a fragment of a picture to show how easily these one-sided bonds form and how invested people can become, even when they know on some level it isn't real. So now let's take a look at some of the most famous scary incidents where parasocial relationships have resulted in some pretty dangerous consequences. Here are the top 10 times where parasocial relationships just went too far. And I also want to add a very quick but important disclaimer. Many of these incidents can be traced back to some pretty serious mental health issues, and I'm not sharing them to mock or sensationalize or stigmatize anyone struggling. The goal here is to understand how parasocial relationships can escalate when these boundaries blur, and to highlight what we, as creators and creatives, can learn about protecting ourselves and our communities in this. Also, trigger warning for some of these, because some of these stories, they do escalate. Okay, number 10. Ryan Gosling's twin flame stalker. So we all know Ryan Gosling from The Notebook, Crazy Stupid Love, a million other things. Crazy famous actor. So in 2014, a 34-year-old woman, Grace Marie Del Villar, developed a delusion that actor Ryan Gosling was her twin flame or twin soul, however you want to look at it. Literally the other half of her soul. Over several months, she harassed Gosling's family, sending bizarre items, like one of them was a doll catalog and church pamphlets with her notes in them, and repeatedly emailed and called his associates. In October of 2014, she even traveled all the way from New York to Los Angeles and showed up uninvited late at night at a family member's home, demanding entry. Gosling, alarmed for his family's safety, obtained a restraining order to keep her 100 yards away from him, his partner, Eva Mendes, also another famous actress, and their child. So maybe this woman saw Ryan Gosling in these famous movies and felt connected to him, and that fantasy escalated in some real-life stalking and crossed some serious boundaries. That could have gone way worse for everyone involved. Okay, number 9. Taylor Swift's multiple stalker incidents. Pop star Taylor Swift has faced numerous frightening encounters due to obsessive fans. In one notorious case, a man broke into her New York townhouse, used her shower, and slept in her bed while she was away. Pause. Can we just, I hate that mental image, but just that's so violating. It's entering your space and your stuff and okay, anyway. Swift later said, "I had a crazy dude break into my apartment and sleep in my bed, ... Didn't like it." Don't blame her. Another man, Eric Swarbrick, it also, that incident, it panned out, it was fine. But another man, Eric Swarbrick, sent over 40 letters to Swift's record label, which grew increasingly threatening. It even professed desires to, I won't say it on here, but to do pretty terrible things to her. He ultimately pleaded guilty to interstate stalking and was jailed. Yet another, Roger Alvarado, was arrested multiple times, first time in April 2018, the second time in March 2019, for breaking into her home. Now, Swift has spoken out about carrying military-grade bandages with her in case of violence, and even used facial recognition at concerts to identify known stalkers, so it gets crazy. These cases show just how parasocial fixations can lead fans to repeatedly violate privacy and safety, forcing Swift to live with heightened security and fear. Imagine being a public figure in the public eye. You can't go anywhere without swarms of people just surrounding you at all times. So think of Taylor Swift, like her home is probably her safe space, like it is for all of us. And can you just imagine someone thinking that they know you and they have a relationship with you that they don't? And it's just, it's so invasive. Number 8, YouTubers Gavin Free and Meg Turney in their home invasion. So not only A-list celebrities face parasocial danger, even online creators have been targets too. In January 2018, popular YouTube couple Gavin Free, known as the Slow-Mo Guys, and Meg Turney, who's a cosplayer and vlogger, woke up at 3:40 a.m., witching hour, to the sound of gunshots shattering their glass door. Yikes. A single, lonely, and disturbed fan named Christopher Giles had driven 11 hours to their Austin, Texas home with a bam bam intent on killing Free and kidnapping Turney. The couple hid in a closet. They called 911 while the intruder stalked through their house, searching for them. Oh my God, that's like a real life horror story. And police arrived just as Giles was leaving. An exchange of pop, pop, pop was ensued, and officers took him down. What's even creepier and more salacious is investigators later found Giles had notes on his phone professing his obsessive love for Turney and his hatred for Free, even writing, I want Gavin Free to unalive alone with no children. So he had been a devoted viewer who grew fixated on Turney's online persona. This harrowing case shows just how a fan's imagined bond can curdle into violent jealousy towards a creator's real-life partner, nearly resulting in, you guessed it, being unalived. Number 7, Call Me Chris's stalker ordeal. Christina Collins, otherwise known as Call Me Chris, who is a Canadian TikTok comedian with over 50, probably even more, 50 million followers and is one of the country's most followed TikToker. During the pandemic, she grew really, really popular for doing all these different characters, and she had the tiny little hands. It was really cute. So she faced a scary situation as well with an obsessive fan. So in April of 2023, after spending a year renovating her new home, Collins revealed that she was forced to move out due to the prying nature of several crazed followers. Adult male fans had found her address and began invading her privacy. And she described this awful situation, like drones were hovering in her backyard late at night and strangers were repeatedly knocking on her door and then running off to see if she was home. Even if that's harmless, that's not a good place to be in. So these intrusions were so extreme that Collins decided that she had to relocate for her own safety. Collins hinted that what she described were only the incidents she felt comfortable sharing, and that even more dangerous situations had occurred that she couldn't publicly detail. The harassment also took a toll on her well-being, causing her past mental health struggles, she's a survivor of SA, to resurface. This is crazy because obsession, when it crosses the line into stalking and harassment, that highlights such a real danger that's faced not just by celebrities, but anyone who has any kind of presence online. It's real, guys. No one should feel endangered or fearing for their life in their own home, or really anywhere, but especially not your own home. Okay, number 6. TikTok star Ava Majuri's armed stalker. Ava Majuri was just 15 with over 1 million TikTok followers when an online fan became a threat to her life. In early 2021, Ava noticed an 18-year-old follower, Eric Rowan Justin, sending her lots and lots of messages. So she initially replied a few times, so she had that engagement, but it's something that a lot of creators do. They engage with their fans, and she did that with many fans. But eventually he grew really pushing and harassing, and alarm bells were going off in her mind, so she cut off contact, and Justin undertook a hopeless and self-destructive pilgrimage to find her. In July of 2021, he traveled from Maryland to Naples, Florida, and showed up at her family's home with a pop-pop, literally blowing open the front door in the middle of the night. Ava's father happened to be a retired police lieutenant. He rushed to confront the intruder, and his you-know-what was jammed after the first blast, so he fled briefly. But then it gets scarier because he actually returned and tried to enter the house. Ava's father fatally shot him at the doorstep to protect his family. And even though in this incident no one was hurt except for the intruder, police later found out that Justin had been live streaming his efforts to track Ava and had even plotted with another teen online. This incident obviously shook the family, and the fact that their daughter's social media fame had invited a deadly situation to their front door, terrifying. And since then, Ava has spoken out about the hidden dangers of internet stardom, saying she could never have imagined her innocent post would result in a stranger showing up at my front door with a pop pop. I say pop pop because I don't want to say the GUN word because I'll get flagged. FYI. Okay. Because there's a lot of them in these stories. Spoiler alert. Okay. All right, number 5, Eminem's home intruder. So a real life stan, if you all are 90s babies and remember, well, the 90s, Eminem, 2000s, he's still relevant, whatever. Anyway, he had this song called Stan about an obsessive fan. Just goes to show even world famous rappers aren't immune to stalkers either. In April of 2020, Eminem, aka Marshall Mathers, awoke in his Detroit area home around 4 a.m. to find a stranger standing in his living room. The intruder was 26-year-old Matthew David Hughes, and he had smashed a window to break in. When the shocked Eminem demanded to know why he was there, Hughes chillingly replied that he was there to unalive him. Imagine that, face to face, like, why are you in my home? I'm here to unalive you. So Eminem managed to remain calm and lead the man toward an exit where security and police intervened, likely preventing an even worse outcome. It turned out Hughes was a persistently obsessed fan, and this was actually his second break-in at Eminem's property. He had also broken into a previous home of the rapper a few years earlier, searching for his brother Marshall. Anyway, after the 2020 incident, Hughes was arrested and later sentenced, initially avoiding prison with probation, but after reoffending, he was ultimately jailed. This case eerily echoed Eminem's famous song Stan, like I mentioned before, about a fan who goes off the deep end, and it's, art imitating life, imitating art in a way that I don't think any artist or creator wants. Okay, number 4, Billie Eilish's home encounters with stalkers. Teen pop sensation Billie Eilish, Ocean Eyes, has also struggled with the dark side of parasocial fandom. In 2020, she sought a restraining order against a man from New York, Pernell Rousseau, who showed up at her Los Angeles home 7 times in 1 week. The individual exhibited erratic behavior, including ringing the doorbell and even sitting down on the front porch to read a book after being told to leave. Eilish, who was 18 at the time, was deeply rattled, understandably, and courts granted a 3-year order to keep him away from her and her parents. And even Google Maps, they brought in Google, they brought in the big guys, and Google Maps blurred out her home on Street View as a result. Not long after, in early 2021, another man, John Hurl, began camping on a schoolyard fence across from her family home, surveilling the house. He would shout at Eilish and make a throat-cutting gesture whenever she came outside. Terrifying. Eilish reported feeling terrorized in her own neighborhood, losing the sense of safety in her own home. She wrote in court filings, quote, "Every time I see him, I just want to scream," describing emotional injury and constant fear for her and her family. That's another thing, too. If you are being pursued by a stalker, you're a public figure, it's not just you that you have to worry about, just like the Ryan Gosling incident or the YouTubers. It's like you have your family to protect as well. So scary. Okay, so a judge promptly granted a temporary restraining order against this stalker, thank goodness. And, Billie Eilish has experienced 2 different stalkers before she even turned 20. That shows how quickly fame can draw dangerous attention. What to the fan is a one-sided love or fixation can, to the star, feel like a horrific invasion of privacy, requiring legal action to fend off. Coming in at number 3, Amaranth's live streaming stalker. So Caitlin Amaranth Siragusa, one of the most popular Twitch streamers, endured a dramatic stalker situation in 2022. A man from Estonia became fixated on her through her streams and decided that he would make her his. He quit his job, sold all of his possessions, even his house and his car, and traveled to Houston, Texas, where she lived. For over a month, this unhinged fan camped out at a Starbucks cafe near her P.O. box. So think of that. Like, she uses her P.O. box thinking that that is an extra level of safety to get fan mail and other packages and stuff related to her brand. And this guy stalked her P.O. box, not even her mailbox. So he stalked her daily in hopes of an encounter and even live streamed his quest, titling it, "Find Caitlin and Make Her Mine." Amaranth became aware of the stalker and was understandably terrified, so she hired armed security to protect her. In June 2022, the stalker finally attempted to break into her house after lurking around her neighborhood, and as he approached her door, mumbling on his live stream about knowing this was wrong, she saw this going down and immediately was like, 911. So police, this is what's crazy. Police took 33 minutes to arrive. That would lead anyone to kind of criticize law enforcement's slow response, but imagine like every minute probably feels like a year at that point. Fortunately, officers did arrive before anything terrible could go down, and they arrested the man, thank goodness. In custody, it was confirmed that he had wholly burned his bridges back home to devote himself to this delusional mission. Amaranth later revealed the stalker had been writing a manifesto of his intentions and had also brought along a bizarre array of items, including a saxophone and formal clothes, perhaps to impress her. I don't know, guy. That's not how you do it. The fact that he streamed his stalking in real time, like, come on. That adds another chilling layer. And another example of parasocial obsession performed publicly. Yet again, why are these guys doing this? Number 2, Christina Grimmie's murder by an infatuated fan. So this was back in 2016. Singer and YouTuber Christina Grimmie was tragically unalived by a fan that she had never met. So on June 10th, 2016, after a concert in Orlando, Florida, 22-year-old Grimmie was signing autographs at a meet and greet when a man approached her. As Grimmie warmly opened her arms for a hug, this man, who was a 27-year-old Kevin Lobel, suddenly pulled out a pop and popped her several times at point blank. So this is terrifying on kind of an even different level because you're not in your home, but you're in a public place where you likely have security around. There's other people, there's friends, there's family, there's other fans. So imagine the sound of that blast. It probably just immediately chaos ensued. Tragically, when this incident happened, Grimmy's brother happened to be there at this fan signing, and he immediately tackled the shooter, but Loibel fatally popped himself in the struggle. Grimmy, unfortunately, was later unalived due to her injuries, and investigators found that Loibel had no personal connection to Grimmy, but had developed a unhealthy and unrealistic infatuation with the singer. And he even went as far as trying to alter his appearance with weight loss and hair and teeth treatments to impress her, and left behind notes suggesting a delusional obsession. Grimmy's murder was a wake-up call about the dangers that performers face from obsessed individuals, and how a seemingly harmless fan in a seemingly harmless situation can twist into a really bad situation. And finally, number 1, Selena Quintanilla and a fan's deadly betrayal. So Selena Quintanilla Perez, she was a famous pop star in the 90s. She was at the height of her career. She was so young. She was just 23 when she was unalived by the president of her own fan club, Yolanda Saldivar. So this was kind of a different situation because this wasn't a complete stranger to Selena. It was someone who she knew. In fact, she even met Selena's family in 1991 to start the official fan club, and eventually became a trusted friend and even the manager of Selena's boutique business. So Selena and her family embraced Saldivar into their inner circle, unaware of the fans' intense devotion that was verging on obsession. By early 1995, cracks in this once loyal friendship began to show. So fan club members complained of paid memberships with no merchandise delivered, and unpaid bills at Selena's boutiques started to raise more suspicions. Selena's father, Abraham Quintanilla, investigated and discovered that Saldivar had embezzled more than $60,000 from the fan club and business accounts. So, confronted with the missing funds in March of 1995, Saldivar was fired from her positions with Selena's enterprises. However, and this is where it just, it's so sad, Selena agreed to meet Saldivar on March 31st, 1995 at a Corpus Christi motel to retrieve the financial records Saldivar had withheld. The final meeting erupted in violence and betrayal. As Selena attempted to leave during a heated argument, Saldivar drew a pop and popped the singer once in the back. This inflicted a grievous wound, and Selena managed to run to the motel lobby and identify Yolanda Saldivar as her assailant before collapsing to the floor. And despite emergency efforts, Selena was pronounced unalive from blood loss within the hour, cutting her life short at just 23 years old. Saldivar was later arrested and convicted of the incident and received a life prison sentence with the possibility of parole after 30 years, which happened to be in 2025 was her first parole request, which was denied. So this case remains a chilling example of a parasocial devotion turned deadly. And again, they knew each other. They had some sort of acquaintanceship and bond, so it makes it that much scarier. And that's the paradox of parasocial relationships. On the surface, they can feel harmless and even be powerful tools for connection, community, and brand building. But when boundaries blur, when the fantasy outweighs reality, they can spiral into something even darker. Sometimes something even deadly. As creators, as professionals, as people sharing our lives online, the lesson here isn't to shut down or isolate. It's to share with intention, to understand that while you may be building trust and community, you're also creating invisible threads of intimacy. And some people might pull on those threads harder than others. So set your boundaries, protect your private life, and remember, you can be authentic without being accessible. The stories we've explored today are chilling reminders of what can happen when connection turns into obsession. But they're also cautionary tales to help you build communities that are both authentic and safe. Thanks for hanging out. That's a wrap on this episode of Jeans with a Blazer. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, a mindset shift, or just the push you needed, do me a favor. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Leave a review wherever you enjoy your podcasts. It helps more people find it, and it keeps these conversations going. And I love hearing from you. Follow at Jeans with the Blazer and tag me with your biggest takeaways, your latest wins, or just tell me what topics you want to hear about next. See you next time.